or professionalism in excessively demanding times. I believe this is a time, my friends, when we must rely on professionalism more than ever before. And maybe the norms or the conditions of our profession seem to be shifting. Day by day, we have new things going on. We're working remotely. Schools are closing. Schools are reopening. There's hybrid. There's switching back to all virtual. Our profession is in upheaval right now. And rather than discard our professional norms, I think this is a time when we need to actually return to them and double down on them. So this week on the Instructional Leadership Show, that is what we are talking about. Our essential question today is, how can a mindset of professionalism get us through our toughest times as educators? And I think it's no exaggeration to say that our toughest times as educators probably are right now. Perhaps individually we've faced tougher times in the past, maybe as a first-year teacher. Those are some tough days. Maybe you've gone through a personal crisis or a career crisis, or maybe left a position and taken a new position. But across the profession, right now, educators are facing unprecedented stress and challenges. And I think this is a time when we really have to lean on professionalism to get us through. And I say professionalism in contrast to one particular thing that I believe is making our jobs more difficult. It's a mindset that is optional. We do not have to choose this mindset, but so many of us do because it feels like the high road. It feels like the right thing to do, but it actually can become quite destructive in times like these. And that is the mindset of heroism, the mindset that says, I am a superhero for kids. I am here to play this kind of heroic role in my school, in my district, and I make a difference in the way that a superhero makes a difference. This is the mindset that, if we're not careful, can creep in to our work and can really set us up for some unhealthy levels of stress and make it difficult to get through this time. So we're going to talk about an alternative, a different mindset that is more adaptive, that is more sustainable, that is more manageable, and that is actually better for students. But it is not this mindset. It is not the heroism mindset. The heroism mindset says that I'm the hero. I am here to do whatever it takes to get the result. There is no problem too big. There is no challenge too daunting. I will leap tall buildings in a single bound, and I can solve it. There is no problem too big for me, and of course I will survive because I am special. Now, I think the reason we have trouble recognizing the heroism mindset in ourselves is because it comes without arrogance, right? There's no arrogance in this heroism mindset that we have as educators. It is a humble heroism, but it makes the same mistake as that heroism mindset always makes of trying to do things that are beyond us. Because we play a role in education, we have a role to fill, we have a contribution that we make, but we are not superheroes, right? There is a reason that every city, every small town in the country, in the world, is kept safe not by a single superhero who does it all, but by a system of professionals who work together. So that professionalism mindset stands in sharp contrast to the heroism mindset. Here's what a professionalism mindset looks like, and here is how it can get us through these tough times we're facing right now. Number one, we have to remind ourselves each and every day, I am a professional with a specific set of skills. There are things that I am talented and trained and good at, and there are other things that are simply beyond the scope of my abilities. I know what I am good at, and of course, depending on what your particular role is, maybe you're a principal, maybe you're a literacy coach, maybe you're a first grade teacher, maybe you're a chemistry teacher, you have a particular set of skills and a particular contribution that you make to student learning, but you're not Batman. I'm not Batman. We don't single-handedly do it all. And when the situation changes and makes a lot of what we normally do impossible, like if you're a chemistry teacher and you really want kids to be able to do their AP chemistry wet labs, that may not be possible if we are doing fully remote virtual learning. There just are things that are going to fall outside of our abilities, outside of our skill set. And we've got to recognize the focus and the specificity of that skill set. Second, we've got to recognize that even though we occupy a particular role and we have good skills that match that role, we're also whole people who are more than a single role. And when we're really dialed in to serving, when we're really dialed in to to getting through one day at a time, we can lose track of the fact that we are whole people, that we're people who have lives outside of school. And I don't mean like you should have a lot of free time for hobbies at this point in the school year. I mean, I never would say that I was a person who who had a whole lot of an outside life, but you are a whole person. You are more than your role. And if you are not able to fully succeed in your work as you're used to, that does not change who you are. That does not take away from the fact that you are a whole person. On the other hand, we're not the whole profession. We are part of a larger profession that extends beyond any one job, any one person, any one employer, and any one situation. As professionals, we operate in a whole ecosystem of professionals who work together on behalf of kids. We are not the I can do it all superhero, and we've got to keep that in mind, especially in challenging times. Finally, we have to remember that there are professional norms that shape our roles and the way we work together beyond the particular circumstances that we find ourselves in right now. And we've got to return to those when we face challenges or when we face the limits of our abilities to meet students' needs. So the first aspect that I want to run with a bit is thinking about professional responsibilities, right? When we think about professional responsibilities, they're in the Danielson framework. We'll take a look at that in just a moment. But what does it mean to have professional responsibilities? I believe it means that we have specific duties that we are responsible for, and normally we are responsible for specific results and for achieving those results within and while following and adhering to specific professional norms, right? We are supposed to help our students achieve standard. We want our students to meet standard while staying within professional norms, right? Like erasing answers on the standardized test and cheating violates those professional norms. So it's like all these things go together where we are responsible for teaching our subjects or for leading our schools or whatever your particular role is. We are responsible for getting results in some way within the constraints of the professional norms that apply to our situation. But I have a couple of asterisks here. I have a couple of stars on some of these responsibilities because this is the year of the asterisk, right? This is the year of something is different, something is not right, and we cannot fully get the results that we are here to get for various reasons, right? Things are disrupted. Things are virtual when virtual doesn't always work all that well. We cannot expect to fully get 100% of the results we are here to get. And sometimes that means we have to adjust our norms a bit. Sometimes we have to adjust our roles a bit. But one of the biggest things that we've got to do is we've got to accept the asterisk. We have to accept the fact that we will not be able to do 100%. And this is where I think a lot of educators really get torn up and really get frustrated at the limits of what they're able to do. You know, imagine that you're standing on a dock and you're trying to help your students get on the ship. You know, there's a ship that is going to a destination. You know, we want our students to get on that ship and learn. We want their learning to take them to where they need to go in life. And when the ship starts to drift away from the dock, we think, okay, well, I'm just going to hang on to this railing real tight and I'm going to kind of fling my students over, over the gap onto the ramp so they make it onto the ship. And yet, if that ship is drifting away because of closures or because of virtual learning that's not working for a lot of our students, there is no amount of heroism that can allow us to do the impossible, right? Like we can hang on to that railing, but if we hang on too long, it can drag us into the ocean, right? There are situations where I am seeing every day educators try to bridge an impossible gap. And you see this ship in the picture here has some white walkway. You can see the gangplanks that fold down. You know, when those have a certain amount of reach to them, and when that reach is exceeded, we've got to recognize that we cannot close that gap through our own personal heroism. As much as we are willing, as much as we have done the heroic in the past, we have limits. We are human, and there are simply some hard limitations on what we're able to do. And if we forget that, here's the danger of forgetting that we are human and mistaking ourselves for superheroes. No matter how much we want to be superheroes and do whatever it takes for our kids, if we allow the boundaries around our professionalism to be violated, we do so at our own peril, and it doesn't really work. So what are some of the boundaries that we have to respect as professionals? I think one of them that we've talked about recently here on this show is that we have to go home at some point, right? You cannot work 24 hours a day. You will not fix all of the problems in your school or all the problems and challenges that your students are facing if you try to work nonstop. You need rest. You need to disconnect. You need to do what you can, work while you're at work, and then go home. There has to be a cutoff point, because if you don't create a cutoff point, if you don't create a boundary and say, you know what, I'm going to work until 5:30, or I'm going to work till 6 o'clock, or I'm going to work till 4:45, or I'm going to work till I have to go pick up my kids, whatever it is, if you don't set that boundary, no one else will set it for you, and your work will not improve. You will not do better for lack of a boundary. When you don't set that limit, your work does not get better. It just takes longer. So set a boundary. Give yourself a going home time. I'm begging you, I'm pleading with you to set that boundary to go home. Give yourself a time, give yourself a deadline. You will work more efficiently. You will get done what you need to, and you will be healthier for it. And that, I think, is one of the most important things. Another boundary is that we focus on the things we can control, right? We don't worry about all the things that are frustrating right now that we can't control. You know, case numbers may be spiraling in your area. There may be restrictions that are being put in place. There may be things that you're simply not allowed to do anymore, or you may not be able to meet in person. We don't control that. As individual educators, we don't control that, so we focus on what we can control. And that is going to result in a lot less frustration and a lot more effective effort. Number 3, we've got to focus on working conditions, right? We've got to make sure that the situations we're setting ourselves up to work in are actually healthy, that we are actually setting ourselves up and setting the people that we work with up for success. So if people are just being eaten alive by this job, we've got to be willing to change those conditions and get away from this kind of whatever it takes attitude, because whatever it takes may be infinite. What it takes may be infinite if the circumstances have put some real hard constraints in place. So I wanted to pose a few questions to you for helping teachers shift from this mindset of heroism to the mindset of professionalism. And there are no easy answers here. I do not have a secret answer key to this list of questions, but these are questions that you can ponder with your teachers as you explore solutions to the many challenges and constraints that you're facing. Number 1, what professional norms are relevant to this situation? How do we know when we're doing the right thing? Well, we look at our professional norms, and we have some sources of those, like Danielson's Domain 4. This is from Charlotte Danielson's Framework for Teaching, and of course too small to read here, but some of the big components here, reflecting on teaching, that is something we can do no matter what the circumstances are. We can reflect on our practice. 4B, maintaining accurate records. We can maintain accurate records. We can communicate with families. We can participate in professional community. We can grow and develop professionally, and we can show professionalism. Those are some of the big picture professional responsibilities that Danielson outlines that can be our anchor, that can be our touchstone when we really can't do everything that we want to do. We can't achieve the level of success with our students that we want to, but we can focus on those norms and kind of keep those as our center. Number 2, we've got to ask ourselves, and in conversation with teachers, ask what limitations are we working within that may constrain our ability to produce results, right? Again, if you're a chemistry teacher, you need to do AP chemistry, wet labs where students are actually, using lab equipment and mixing chemicals and wearing the safety goggles and the lab coats, and they're at home because schools are closed. That is a hard constraint, and we can't fix it through heroic effort. And if we try, we've got to be very mindful of the consequences. So we've got to help teachers accept some of the unrealistic expectations that they are holding on to. So if you have a chemistry teacher who says, you know what, Justin, I'm just going to drive around to every student's house between 6 and 7 a.m. and drop off all the materials and all the safety equipment for them, and then we'll do the lab live on Zoom, and then I'll drop by their house again and pick up everything and dispose of the hazardous materials. You might have to pause take a breath and say, I'm not sure that that is a sustainable or realistic expectation. You may be able to do that for one special thing. There may be one big project where it's really worth distributing those materials and dealing with all the safety stuff. Like, save it though. Save it for the extra special things, and don't try to hold yourself to an impossible standard week after week. And the bottom line is we've got to ask ourselves, to meet our students' needs, what can we do? What is within our control? Let's do less and let's do it better. Let's cut back on the things that are not going to work well, on the things that are going to be inefficient, on the things that are not going to make a difference in this dramatically different reality that we find ourselves working in. Let's do less but better. This is a time to focus on the essentials. So again, I would encourage you to look at the domain 4 in Danielson, professional responsibilities and other sources of guidance for what professionalism looks like. Because if we don't allow ourselves to be guided by professional boundaries, we will allow ourselves to be guilted into things that don't work and that are unsustainable by these norms of heroism, right? This idea that I have to be a superhero, that I have to do the impossible or I'm not doing right by kids. That is not the mindset that will allow us to stay in the game long term, right? We've got to have a professional mindset, not a heroic mindset. And I have a special warning for you if you are in a charter school or a religious school. If you work in a private or parochial school where you have a particular faith mandate, you have a mission, or maybe you have a kind of a charter school mandate, maybe you have a particular commitment to serving underserved students, the mindset that creeps in these environments of heroism, of whatever it takes, of going the extra mile, it can be useful to a point, but in times like these, it can become toxic because there is no amount of effort that will allow us to solve some of the problems that we are solving right now. And if you try, what happens is you burn out, right? If you try to bridge that gap that you can't bridge because the ship has drifted too far from the dock, what happens? You fall in, you drown. And my friends, I see this happening right now in our profession where people are not recognizing the very real constraints that they're working within, and they're falling in and they're drowning. And we need to keep that from happening. So if you find yourself in a situation where it really is not possible to achieve the results you want to, especially if the culture is one of this kind of toxic overcommitment, right? You are not going to be able to solve all of the problems that you're facing right now and that your students are facing right now simply by working harder. And if your organization is telling you that you can, you may be in a toxic environment. You may be working in an organization that does not have what it takes, that is not operating in order to produce the results that it wants to produce, and it's counting on you to do the impossible, and you can't. So you have got to recognize the boundaries. You have got to recognize the limits, and if other people around you are not doing that, that is going to be a bigger challenge this year. And if you're in a leadership role in an organization like this that continually expects and demands the impossible from people, this is a time to speak up. Maybe not too loudly, but to speak up to the people that you're responsible for and set those boundaries and say, here's what we can do. We're going to do less, but better. We're going to protect ourselves so that we can stay in this and not fall in and drown. Here's what I think we have to understand that's going to sound a little bit, not cynical perhaps, but a little cold, but I want you to bear with me on this particular claim here. I believe that as professionals, we are replaceable. We are interchangeable. And we do not like to hear that. We do not like to hear that we are replaceable. I like to think that I'm special, that I make a unique contribution in my organization, that I have a particular set of talents and a personality and a disposition and a work ethic that means that I am irreplaceable. But I am not, and neither are you. As great as you are, as amazing as you are, we are all replaceable. I heard a quote the other day that said, if you retire or leave or die, you will be replaced immediately as soon as your successor passes the background check, right? They're not going to close the school down when you leave and call it the Justin Bader Memorial Site, right? Like this is going to happen at some point. You are going to leave your role and someone else will replace you. We are all replaceable by design. This is a profession where we play a particular role. And when we can no longer play that role anymore, maybe you move on to something else or you retire, hopefully, and then someone else takes your place. And that is a good thing because the work must go on. We have to remember that the goal for students is continuity. The goal for students is stability. Educators come and go. If you look back at a school that you worked at 10 years ago, chances are pretty good that that school is still there, and some of the people are, but many of the people will have moved on. And you know what? Someone else came in and did their job. But the challenge we have right now in education is that the ranks are thinning. Right? People are retiring. It's hard to get subs. People are quitting. And the most important challenge that we are facing right now is being able to staff our classrooms. And one of the biggest threats to continued staffing in our schools is this heroism mindset. So if we replace that heroism mindset with a mindset of professionalism that says, you know what, there is a role that I play, there are boundaries around that role, we can't do everything perfectly, but the things that I can do, I'm going to do with excellence, and we're going to do less but better. That is what will get us through this time. So I'd love to hear from you. What do you think about this? What are some of the boundaries and the kind of realignments that we need to think about? If we're going to have, as an outcome of this time, sustainability, if we're going to keep people, if we're going to retain the professionals that do this work, what do we need to do? What adjustments do we need to make? I don't think it's selfish. I don't think it's selfish to put boundaries in place and say, you know what? It's 5 o'clock. Our teachers need to go home. Let's get ready for tomorrow. Let's do what we need to do, but let's not stay here all night. Let's not sacrifice. Let's not burn the candle at both ends to such a terrible extent that we burn out and that we have to take a leave or quit the profession altogether. That is what is not good for students. So right now, I want you to think about how you can keep yourself in the game long term and how you can keep your team in the game long term, because that is more important than any short-term goal. We have got to keep people healthy if we want to keep people, and that is what is going to produce results for our students. We need a stable, professional workforce that hopefully includes you, that hopefully includes everyone on your team, staying in the role, not these unsustainable heroics that cause people to burn out. So a mindset of professionalism, not a mindset of heroism. That's what I have for you today. Give me a quick shout at 501-222-4415 and let me know what you think. Just send me a text, and I'd love to know, what does it look like for you to be a professional rather than a hero right now? Send me a text. Let me know what you're seeing in your school. Let me know what you're doing to set those boundaries and to keep yourself working, to keep yourself in the game, and to keep yourself from burning out, because our students need you to do that. They need you to set those boundaries, to keep yourself healthy and to keep your team healthy by modeling and setting the example and intervening when perhaps people are burning out. So send me a text, 501-222-4415, and let me know. That's it for this week's episode of the Instructional Leadership Show. This has been episode 84, Professionalism in Excessively Demanding Times. I'm Justin Bader, and I'll see you next time. Take care.